A 13-year-old girl gave away her last dollar to a stranger, and it changed her entire life. It was a Tuesday night in East Baltimore, pouring rain, freezing cold. Lena Foster stood at a bus stop with $3.40 in her pocket. That was all she had. Next to her, an old woman sat shivering on the bench, lips blue, hands trembling. No money for the bus, no way to get home. Lena looked at her coins.
If I help her,
she knew
I walk.
if she paid this woman's fare, she'd have to walk 3 miles home, alone, in the dark, in the storm. She's 13. She should have kept walking. But Lena didn't think about herself. She never
Ma'am,
does.
are you okay?
She gave the old woman $1.90
sweetheart.
and
Please,
stepped back
take
into
it.
the rain. What she didn't know,
Go.
what she
Get
couldn't
one.
possibly
getting
know,
on?
was that the
I'm
woman
okay.
she just saved was worth $4.2 billion, and that by tomorrow, everything about Lena's life, her mother's illness, her father's pain, her impossible dream, was about to change forever. Most adults would have crumbled under this weight. Lena Foster carried it with a straight back and a smile she didn't owe anybody. But before you understand what she did that night, you need to see what her life looked like that morning. 6 a.m., the Foster apartment. A tired 2-bedroom in a tired East Baltimore row house. Water stain on the ceiling patched with duct tape. A second-hand couch with a blanket thrown over the torn cushion. A small kitchen table covered with crayon drawings of butterflies and a biology textbook so worn the spine was cracked in 3 places. Someone else's name was crossed out on the inside cover. Lena had written hers underneath, in neat, careful letters, like she was claiming something that finally belonged to her. Lena was already up. She was always up first. She made toast for her little sister Nyla, laid out the 5-year-old's school clothes, poured a glass of juice, the last of the carton. She didn't pour one for herself. She told herself she wasn't hungry. She told herself that a lot. In the next room, her mother Diane was getting ready for work, ironing her hotel maid uniform carefully, even though the cuffs were fraying. Diane worked at the Harbor Regent Hotel downtown, housekeeping, double shifts most days. But something was wrong with Diane, something she tried very hard to hide. She moved slowly. She got winded just from standing, and when she thought nobody was looking, she'd press her hand against her chest and close her eyes, just for a second. Just long enough to breathe through whatever was squeezing her from the inside. Mitral valve disease. That's what the doctors called it. They said she needed surgery. They said it would cost $180,000. They said it without looking her in the eye. Diane didn't have insurance. She didn't have savings. She had a maid's salary and 2 daughters and a husband who couldn't work. So she didn't get the surgery. She just kept ironing her uniform, kept showing up, kept pressing her hand to her chest when she thought no one was watching. But Lena was watching. Lena was always watching. That's why she'd asked her science teacher, Mrs. Dawson, how the heart's mitral valve works. Not for a school project, not for extra credit, because she needed to understand what was happening inside her mother's chest. Mrs. Dawson had looked at this 13-year-old girl, asking questions most college students wouldn't think to ask, and handed her a university-level anatomy textbook. Lena held it like it was made of gold. Her father Curtis sat at the kitchen table that morning, circling want ads with a pen that was almost out of ink. His cane leaned against the chair. 2 years ago, Curtis Foster was a construction worker, strong, proud, the kind of man who could carry his daughters on his shoulders without breaking stride. Then a steel beam shifted on a job site. His back never recovered. Now he walked with a cane. He picked up whatever work he could find, fixing a neighbor's leaky pipe, patching someone's drywall, cash jobs, under the table. Not enough. His back medication cost $95 a month. Diane's heart medication cost $210. They couldn't afford both. So Curtis stopped taking his pills, quietly, without telling anyone. He figured the pain was his to carry. He'd been carrying it for 2 years. When Lena walked past him that morning, he caught her hand, squeezed it once. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Lena dropped Nyla off at Miss Thelma's apartment next door. Miss Thelma, 60-something, retired church choir director, the kind of neighbor who was more grandmother than friend. She greeted them singing a hymn and pressed a brown paper bag into Lena's hands. "Leftover biscuits from Sunday, baby girl. Don't you dare argue with me." Lena tried to give it back. Miss Thelma gave her the look. Every black child in America knows the look. Lena took the bag. She knelt down to Nyla. "Be good for Miss Thelma, okay?" Nyla held up a crayon drawing, a butterfly with lopsided wings. "This one's for you, Lily." Lena tucked it inside her biology textbook, right between the chapter on cardiac anatomy and the chapter on blood circulation. At school, Lena sat in biology class with a cracked microscope and textbooks from 2011. Franklin Middle School didn't have much. But Lena didn't need much. She stayed after class and asked Mrs. Dawson 3 more questions about mitral valve repair. Mrs. Dawson watched her scribble notes and said, "Lena, you'd make a remarkable doctor someday." Lena smiled. "That's the plan." At lunch, she ate Miss Thelma's biscuits alone at a corner table, reading the anatomy book. A classmate asked what she was reading. "Just studying," Lena said. What she didn't say, "I'm trying to understand why my mother can't breathe." 3:30. School was out, but Lena's day wasn't. She walked 6 blocks to Jeffrey's corner grocery. Mr. Jeffries paid her $6 an hour to bag groceries. Cash, under the table. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, 3:45 to 6:15. That's about $15 a shift. Lena gave $13 to her mother for groceries, kept $2 for bus fare and emergencies. $15. That's what a 13-year-old girl earned to help keep her family above water. And the thing about Lena? She never complained. Not once. Not to anyone. She just showed up, did the work, handed over the money, opened her textbook, and kept dreaming about the day she'd fix her mother's heart herself. But what was coming next? What was waiting for her at that bus stop in the rain? Lena had no way to prepare for that. Nobody could have. Of all the bus stops in Baltimore, this woman ended up at Lena's. That wasn't a coincidence. That was something bigger at work. 6:20 p.m. Lena stepped out of Jeffrey's with $15 in an envelope and loose change in her jacket pocket. $13 for her mother, the rest for herself. $3.40. That was her whole world right now. The rain had started around 4, not a drizzle, a full November downpour. 41 degrees, wind cutting sideways off the harbor, the kind of cold that gets into your bones and stays. Lena pulled her hoodie up, 2 sizes too big from a church clothing drive, and started walking toward the number 9 bus stop on Pratt Street. 3 blocks. Normally nothing. Tonight it felt like a mile. Her sneakers soaked through before she made it half a block. She tucked the biology textbook deeper into her backpack to keep it dry. That book mattered more than dry feet, more than warm hands, more than just about anything she owned. Her phone buzzed. A text from her dad. "Mom took an extra shift. I'm making rice and beans. Be safe coming home, baby girl." She texted back a heart emoji. Then, "Almost at the bus stop." Head down, rain hammering her hood, headlights smearing through water like wet paint on dark canvas. The smell of soaked concrete and fried food from a takeout spot she'd never once been inside. Then she reached the bus stop. Under the plexiglass shelter sat an old woman, white, thin, late 70s. She wore a beige raincoat, expensive fabric even rumpled and soaked through. White hair plastered to her forehead, shoulders curled inward. And her lips, Lena noticed immediately, were tinged blue-purple. She gripped a small leather handbag on her lap with both hands, tight, like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the earth. On the woman's lapel, a small gold pin caught the fluorescent light. 2 letters, W and H, intertwined in an elegant design. Lena glanced at it, thought, "That's pretty," looked away. She didn't know that pin, didn't know what those letters meant. Not yet. Behind the shelter across the street, a rain-blurred billboard glowed faintly. Whitfield Health Systems, building healthier communities since 1976. Lena had walked past it 1,000 times, never once looked up. Tonight was no different. She wasn't looking at billboards. She was looking at the old woman, because the old woman was falling apart. Stiff fingers fumbled through the handbag. Wallet, no cash. Another compartment, empty. A zippered pocket, one credit card. But the bus only took cash or transit card. She looked up at the digital display. Number 9 bus, arriving in 4 minutes. Her face crumbled. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. The way old people fall apart when they'd rather freeze than ask for help. She whispered to no one, "Oh, oh dear." Lena heard it. Something pulled tight inside her chest. She knew that look. She'd seen it on her mother's face at the end of every month, when the numbers didn't work, when medicine was too expensive, when the bills won. Quiet desperation dressed up as dignity. Lena recognized it the way you recognize your own reflection. Then her brain did what it always did. Math. $3.40. Bus fare, $1.90. One ride home tonight would leave $1.50, not enough for tomorrow's fare. She'd walk to Jeffrey's after school. 12 blocks, doable. But if she paid for the old woman too? $1.50 total, not enough for even one ride. She'd walk home tonight. 3.1 miles, in this rain, in the dark, through the streets her daddy told her never to walk alone after sunset. She's 13. She's a girl. She's alone. And this woman, this shivering, blue-lipped stranger, Lena could see it clearly now. Shallow breathing, confusion, a slight sway on the bench. This wasn't just someone without bus fare. This woman was in real distress. Maybe hypothermia, maybe cardiac, maybe both. Lena knew those symptoms. She'd been reading about them for weeks. Not for school, for her mother. The number 9 bus appeared 2 blocks away, headlights cutting through rain like 2 yellow eyes. 4 minutes. Lena had 4 minutes to decide. But what she didn't know, what nobody at that bus stop could have known, was that this decision was about to open a door Lena didn't even know existed. What Lena did next cost her $1.90. What it set into motion, that part's going to take your breath away. Lena looked at the money in her palm. A crumpled dollar bill, 3 quarters, 4 dimes, a nickel. She'd counted it twice already. She didn't need to count again. She knew exactly what she had and exactly what it meant. If she gave this woman $1.90, she'd have $1.50 left. Not enough for a bus ride. She'd walk home, 3.1 miles, in the rain, in the dark, alone. Through the streets her father specifically told her to never walk after sunset. Her dad's voice in her head, "Don't you walk past Edmondson after dark, you hear me?" Her mom's voice, softer, "Always help people, Lena, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you." 2 voices, 2 truths. She held them both for one breath. Then she stepped toward the bench. "Ma'am?" Eleanor looked up. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. She startled slightly. She hadn't noticed the girl standing there. This close, Lena could see it clearly, the shallow rise and fall of her chest, the slight tremor in her jaw, the blue beneath her skin that had nothing to do with the cold. "Ma'am, are you okay? You look really cold." Eleanor's voice came out thin, embarrassed, the voice of someone who was not used to needing help. "I seem to have come out without... I don't have any cash, and I can't..." She trailed off, looked at Lena, this soaking wet kid in an oversized hoodie, and something like shame crossed her face, as if being seen like this by a child was worse than the cold itself. Lena didn't stand over her, she sat down, right next to her on that bench, close enough so Eleanor could feel she wasn't alone, but not so close she'd feel crowded. That's a small thing, but it's not a small thing. Most adults don't have that instinct. Lena did. She was 13 and she already understood that dignity matters more than help sometimes. "Where are you trying to get to?" Lena asked. Eleanor hesitated. "Roland Park." Roland Park, 9 miles north, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Baltimore. A clue sitting right there in the open. But Lena didn't know Baltimore's geography by income bracket. She just knew it was on the number 9 route. "That's this bus. It's coming right now. Here." She held out $1.90 in exact change. Coins balanced on her small palm. A palm that was rough and dry from bagging groceries and scrubbing dishes. A palm that looked like it belonged to someone 3 times her age. Eleanor shook her head immediately. "Oh no, sweetheart, absolutely not. I couldn't take money from a child." "It's okay, ma'am, really. It's cold out and you need to get home. You don't look—" Lena paused. She almost said, "You don't look well." She was thinking about the blue lips, the shallow breathing, the symptoms she'd memorized from her mother's anatomy textbook. "You just need to get somewhere warm." "But what about your fare? How will you get home?" "I don't live far. I'll walk. It's fine." A lie. A brave and terrifying lie from a 13-year-old girl who knew exactly how far she lived and exactly how dark it was outside. Eleanor stared at her, and something shifted behind those eyes. Those sharp, intelligent eyes. Eyes that had read contracts worth billions. Eyes that had stared down boardrooms full of powerful men went completely soft. Because what she saw was not a transaction, not pity. The old woman swayed and Lena caught her elbow. Gently, firmly, the exact same way she steadied her father when his back seized up. She walked Eleanor to the bus door, fed the coins into the fare box one by one. The driver looked at Lena. "You getting on, sweetheart?" "No, sir, I'm okay." She stepped back into the rain. The doors closed. The bus pulled away. And from inside, Eleanor turned to look through the rear window. Rain streaked the glass, but she could see her. Lena, 13 years old, standing alone at the bus stop, pulling her hood tighter, turning to walk, not toward home, but in the opposite direction. Into the dark, into the storm. Eleanor's hand went to her chest, not from her heart condition, from something else entirely. She whispered, "That child gave me her bus money." The driver glanced in the mirror. "You say something, ma'am?" Eleanor didn't answer. She watched Lena's small figure disappear into the night until the bus turned a corner and she couldn't see her anymore. And for the first time in years, this woman who had built a healthcare empire, who had dined with senators and shaken hands with presidents, Eleanor Whitfield had to fight back tears. Over $1.90 from a 13-year-old girl. Now Lena walked, 3.1 miles, sneakers squelching with every step. She passed a group of older teens on a corner and kept her eyes straight ahead. Walked faster. Past Whitfield Memorial Hospital, huge, glowing, lit up against the rain, and thought to herself, "That's where I'll work someday." Her phone buzzed. "Dad, where are you? Bus should have been there by now." She typed back with numb fingers. "Bus was full. Walking home. Almost there, don't worry." Another lie. To protect him. She got home at 7:25, soaked through, shivering. Her father opened the door before she could reach the handle. He'd been watching from the window, his face, worry, then relief, then quiet anger. "Lena Marie Foster, why are you walking in this?" "The bus was packed, Daddy. I'm fine." He wrapped her in a towel. He didn't believe her, but he let it go, for now. Lena went home and forgot about it. Just another Tuesday, just another stranger. But the old woman, she couldn't forget. She wouldn't let herself. The number 9 bus rolled into Roland Park at 7:12 p.m. Eleanor stepped off at a quiet street lined with oak trees and iron gates. A stately brick colonial sat at the end of a circular driveway. Perfectly trimmed hedges. A polished black sedan parked out front. And on the porch, pacing, phone pressed to his ear, her private driver, Harold. He spotted her and nearly dropped the phone. "Mrs. Whitfield, thank God! Your grandson has been calling every 5—" Eleanor raised one hand. Calm. Quiet. The kind of gesture that had silenced boardrooms for 50 years. Harold stopped mid-sentence. She walked inside without a word. This was not the home of a woman who rides city buses. Oil paintings on the walls. First edition medical journals behind glass. A framed honorary doctorate from Johns Hopkins in the study. A photograph of Eleanor shaking hands with 3 different governors. Another of her cutting a ribbon outside a hospital that bore her family name. This was the home of Eleanor Whitfield, founder and majority shareholder of Whitfield Health Systems. $4.2 billion, 38 hospitals, the most powerful woman in East Coast healthcare. And tonight she had been shivering on a bench, rescued by a child. She sat in her study and called Graham. Her grandson picked up on the first ring. His voice was tight with the kind of anger that only comes from fear. "Grandmother, you disappeared for 5 hours. Harold was about to call the police." "Graham, stop talking and listen." Silence. "A child paid my bus fare tonight."
What?
A girl, 13, maybe 14, black, wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big. She was soaked to the bone. She'd clearly just come from some kind of work. There was a grocery apron stuffed in her backpack. Eleanor's voice cracked. Graham hadn't heard that sound in years. She looked at her money. She looked at me, and she gave me every cent she had. Then she walked home, in the rain, in the dark. A child, Graham. She walked home so that I could ride. Graham said nothing for a long moment. Then, "Are you okay? Physically, are you—" "I'm fine. Listen to me. I need you to find this girl." Eleanor reached into a raincoat pocket. When Lena had helped her stand at the bus stop, something had slipped from the girl's unzipped backpack pocket onto the bench. Eleanor had picked it up, meaning to call out, but the doors closed too fast. She held it up now. A laminated student ID card, Franklin Middle School. The photo showed a girl with 2 neat braids, smiling wide. Name, Lena Foster. Grade, 8th. And below the photo, a small sticker. Honor Roll, Fall Semester. Eleanor set the card on her desk. Right next to it, she unpinned the gold brooch from her lapel. The intertwined W and H. She placed them side by side. A $1 billion insignia and an 8th grader's honor roll card. 2 worlds on one desk. "Find her," Eleanor said. "Not through lawyers, not through the PR department. You go yourself, tomorrow." "Grandmother, what exactly are you planning?" Eleanor didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted to a photograph on the far wall. Black and white, faded at the edges. It showed a young girl, maybe 14, standing outside a one-room schoolhouse in rural Virginia, barefoot, holding a textbook against her chest. The year was 1962. The girl was Eleanor. "That child reminded me of someone," she said quietly. "Me, before anyone in this world believed I could be anything." The next morning, Lena woke at 6, like always. Made toast for Nyla, skipped her own. Got her sister dressed. Noticed her student ID was missing from her backpack. Panicked for a second. The school would need it. Must have fallen out at the bus stop. She put on her sneakers, still soaked from last night. Her father had left his own dry work boots by her door. Way too big. She put on 2 pairs of socks and wore them anyway. Nyla laughed. Lena laughed too. Then she walked to school. No bus fare, no ID, no complaint. She didn't think about the old woman, not once. It was a small thing, a Tuesday night thing, already behind her. She had a biology test today. She'd been studying for it during her walk home last night, in the rain, in the dark, reciting mitral valve anatomy from memory while puddles filled her shoes. She was going to ace it. 3 things happened before sundown that should have told Lena her life was about to change. She missed all 3. The first happened in a corner office 22 floors above downtown Baltimore. Graham Whitfield sat behind a glass desk with Lena's student ID in one hand and a thin file in the other. His assistant had pulled it together overnight. He read it slowly, paused at one line, removed his glasses. "She's 13. He flipped a page. His jaw tightened. "Straight A student. Bags groceries after school to help her family." Another page, flagged. "Diane Foster. 1 emergency room visit last year at Whitfield Memorial. Mitral valve disease. Surgery recommended. Deferred. Reason? Uninsured. Unable to pay." Graham set the file down, stared at the school ID. This little girl with 2 braids, smiling like the world hadn't given her a single reason to. He picked up his phone. "Cancel my afternoon." The second thing happened at Franklin Middle School, last period. The office called Lena out of class. Her heart dropped. Was it her mom? Did something happen? She rushed to the front desk. The secretary looked up with a half-curious expression. "Relax, honey, nobody's hurt. Some company called asking to verify your enrollment. Said they were from a foundation. A W something. You apply for a scholarship I don't know about?" Lena frowned. "No, ma'am." "Well, you should. You've got the grades for it." Lena went back to class, confused, a little uneasy, but her biology test was next period and she had bigger things to think about. She scored 96%. The third thing happened at 4:15. Miss Thelma was watching Nyla at her apartment. She glanced out the window and saw something that didn't belong on their block. A polished black sedan, brand new, the kind of car that cost more than a year's rent on this street. A man in a suit sat inside, looking at the address numbers, writing something down. Miss Thelma texted Diane, "There's a fancy car sitting outside your place. You got a rich uncle I don't know about?" Diane was halfway through her hotel shift. She texted back, "Probably a lost Uber, LOL." Nobody thought twice. But that car wasn't lost. That man wasn't confused. And by tomorrow evening, every single person in the Foster family would know exactly who he was and why he'd come. The knock came at 5:45, and everything the Foster family thought they knew about last Tuesday night was about to be completely rewritten. Lena had just gotten home from Jeffrey's. Curtis was in the kitchen making rice. Nyla was at the table drawing butterflies. A normal evening. A quiet evening. The kind of evening where nothing ever happens. Lena dropped her backpack by the door and pulled something from the front pocket. Her biology test. 96%. She held it up with a grin she couldn't hide. Curtis looked at it, and his whole face changed. Not just pride, something deeper. Like watching proof that his daughter was going to make it out. Going to be something, despite everything. "That's my girl," he said, and pinned it to the fridge with a magnet, right next to Nyla's butterflies. Then came the knock. Firm, polite. 3 measured beats. Not the knock of a neighbor borrowing sugar, not the knock of a bill collector. Something else entirely. Curtis picked up his cane and went to the door. He opened it halfway, the way you open a door when you're not expecting anyone and you live in a neighborhood where unexpected knocks aren't always good news. A white man stood in the hallway. Early 40s, clean-shaven. Charcoal suit tailored so precisely it looked like it had been sewn onto his body. Behind him, a woman in a blazer holding a leather portfolio. They looked like they'd stepped out of a different universe, which, in a way, they had. "Mr. Foster?" Curtis's grip tightened on his cane. "Yes? My name is Graham Whitfield. I'm the CEO of Whitfield Health Systems." Curtis blinked. The name meant nothing to him. "I believe your daughter Lena met my grandmother last week, at the number 9 bus stop." Curtis's face shifted. Confusion first, then a flash of protective alarm. He angled his body slightly in front of the doorway, the instinct of a father who didn't know what was coming, but was ready to stand between it and his child. "What's this about?" "May I come in? I promise, this is good news." Lena appeared behind her father. She'd heard the voice from the kitchen. She saw the suit. She saw the woman with the portfolio. And then Graham said the words, "Whitfield Health Systems," and something inside her brain started spinning. Whitfield. W-H. The gold pin on the old woman's coat, the elegant letters she'd thought were pretty, W and H, Whitfield Health. The billboard behind the bus stop she'd never bothered to look at. Whitfield Health Systems, building healthier communities since 1976. The hospital she walked past on her way home that night, glowing in the rain. Whitfield Memorial. It all crashed together. Every clue she'd missed, every detail she'd glanced at and filed away without knowing what it meant. All of it, slamming into place at once inside a 13-year-old's mind. "Daddy," she said quietly, "I think this is about the lady at the bus stop." Curtis turned to look at his daughter. "What lady? What bus stop?" Lena hadn't told anyone. Not her father, not her mother, not Miss Thelma, not a soul. Graham stepped inside, He sat down at the kitchen table, the same table with the butterfly drawings and the 96% biology test pinned to the fridge behind him. He looked around the apartment, the duct-taped ceiling, the second-hand couch, the anatomy textbook sitting beside a plate of rice. Then he explained. Eleanor Whitfield, his grandmother, was the founder and majority shareholder of Whitfield Health Systems, a healthcare company worth $4.2 billion. 38 hospitals across the eastern seaboard. She had slipped away from her security detail last Tuesday to revisit East Baltimore, the neighborhood where she opened her first free clinic in 1972. A private pilgrimage she made every few years. Alone. She got caught in the storm. Her phone died. She had no cash. She was disoriented and showing early signs of hypothermia and cardiac distress. "That's when your daughter found her," Graham said. Curtis was gripping his cane so hard his knuckles had gone pale. "Lena paid my grandmother's bus fare with what I understand was every cent she had. Then she walked home, over 3 miles, in the storm, alone, at night." The kitchen went silent. Even Nyla stopped drawing. She looked up, sensing something big was happening, something she didn't quite understand. Graham continued. "My grandmother has met world leaders, Fortune 500 executives, senators, people who perform kindness when there's a camera rolling and a tax write-off waiting. She told me, and these are her exact words, that little girl didn't help me because of who I was. She helped me because of who she is. And Graham, she's only 13. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a laminated card. Lena's student ID, 2 braids, big smile, honor roll sticker. She also asked me to return this. Lena took it. Her hands were trembling. Curtis looked at his daughter. His voice was rough. "Lena, why didn't you tell me?" She looked at the floor. Small voice. The voice of a child who carried too much and asked for too little. "Because you would have worried, Daddy." Curtis pulled her into his chest with one arm. His cane clattered to the floor. He didn't pick it up. He just held her. Eyes red, jaw tight, holding his little girl who had walked 3 miles in the dark to protect a stranger and then lied about it to protect him. Nyla looked up from her drawing. "Lena, who's that man? Is he talking about the bus lady?" Everyone turned to her. "Lena told me she helped a grandma get on the bus because the grandma was cold and scared. She said the grandma reminded her of what our grandma would look like, if we had one." The room went completely still. Graham looked away, just for a moment, just long enough. What Eleanor Whitfield offered the Foster family wasn't charity, it was recognition. It was a woman who'd once been a barefoot girl in Virginia looking at another girl with the same fire and refusing to let it go out. But before the offer came the meeting, and before the meeting came a Saturday morning that the Foster family would remember for the rest of their lives. They arrived at Whitfield Health Systems headquarters at 10 a.m., a gleaming glass tower in downtown Baltimore. Lena wore her cleanest jeans and a blouse her mother had ironed 3 times that morning. Curtis wore his one good shirt, buttoned to the top, tucked in tight. He leaned on his cane, but he stood straight. Diane wore her Sunday church dress. She'd done her hair. She'd put on lipstick. She was out of breath by the time they crossed the lobby, but she didn't let it show. And Nyla wore a butterfly t-shirt. She held Lena's hand and looked up at the marble ceiling and whispered, "Are we in a castle?" They walked past security desks and corporate portraits, into a private elevator, up 22 floors. Nyla pressed her nose against the glass and watched Baltimore shrink below her. The doors opened onto Eleanor's private floor, and there she was, standing, waiting. Completely different from the woman at the bus stop. Silver hair swept into a clean knot, an ivory blazer, pearl earrings. She stood with the posture of someone who had built an empire with her own hands. Because she had. But her eyes were exactly the same, and they filled the moment she saw Lena walk through that door. "There she is," Eleanor said softly. "My brave girl in the rain." She opened her arms, and Lena, this 13-year-old girl who had held herself together through everything, who never complained, who never asked for anything, stepped forward and let herself be held. Eleanor held her the way a grandmother holds a grandchild. Tight, warm, like she'd been waiting for this. Diane pressed her hand to her mouth. Curtis blinked hard and looked at the ceiling. Then Eleanor lowered herself to Nyla's level, slowly. Her knees protested. She didn't care. "And who is this butterfly princess?" Nyla's eyes went wide. "Are you the bus lady?" Eleanor laughed. A real, full, warm laugh that filled the entire floor. "Yes, baby, I'm the bus lady." Nyla reached into her little backpack and pulled out a drawing she'd made that morning. A bus in the rain. 2 stick figures holding hands, one small, one old. Eleanor took it like it was a masterpiece, because to her it was. They sat at a long conference table. Eleanor slid a folder across to Curtis and Diane, not to Lena, because Lena was a child, and Eleanor respected that her parents were the decision-makers. She opened the folder and laid it out piece by piece. First, Diane's heart surgery. Immediate authorization for mitral valve repair at Whitfield Memorial Hospital. Their top cardiac surgical team. Full coverage, no cost to the family. Estimated value, $180,000. Curtis's hand found Diane's under the table. Second, the Eleanor Foster Medical Scholars Fund. A full scholarship, named after Lena, covering everything from high school through medical school. Private high school starting next fall at Baltimore Preparatory Academy. Then undergraduate pre-med. Then medical school. Tuition, books, lab fees, living expenses. Total estimated value, $350,000. Lena stopped breathing. Third, full orthopedic care for Curtis. Evaluation, surgery if needed, physical therapy, all of it covered through Whitfield's rehabilitation program. Curtis's grip on Diane's hand tightened until his knuckles went white. Fourth, housing stability. Immediate payment of the family's back rent. Relocation to a 3-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood near Baltimore Prep. Funded for 24 months while the family got back on solid ground. Fifth, a $30,000 education trust for Nyla, waiting for her when she turned 18. Sixth, the reopening of a free community health clinic in East Baltimore, on the same block where Eleanor opened her first clinic in 1972. And when Lena finished medical school, there would be a place waiting for her. Her clinic, her community, her purpose. The room was very quiet. Lena looked at the scholarship letter, her name printed on a document from a $4.2 billion company. She looked up. "Why? I just paid for a bus ride." Eleanor reached across the table and took both of Lena's hands in hers. Small hands inside old hands, rough palms against soft ones, the same hands that had touched at the bus stop. Together again. In 1962, I was a barefoot girl in Virginia who wanted to be a doctor. Everyone told me I was crazy. Then one day a stranger, a woman I never learned the name of, handed me a used biology textbook and said, "Don't let anybody tell you what you can't be." I built everything you see in this building from that one moment. She squeezed Lena's hands. "You are that moment for me, Lena. You are the reason I still believe." Diane broke first. Quiet tears, the kind that come when a weight you've carried for years is suddenly lifted. Curtis held her hand. His jaw was locked. His eyes were red. This man who couldn't provide the way he wanted to, hearing that his daughter's kindness had just unlocked everything he couldn't give her. Lena looked at her mother. "Mama, they're going to fix your heart." Diane couldn't speak. She pulled Lena into her lap like she was 5 years old again. Nyla patted Diane's arm. "Mama, why are you crying?" "I'm not sad, baby. Mama's happy. Mama's so happy." $1.90. That's what it cost. What it built? That's still growing. The first change came 3 weeks later. Diane Foster walked into Whitfield Memorial Hospital at 6 a.m. on a Thursday morning. The same hospital Lena had walked past in the rain that night. The same hospital she'd looked up at and thought, "That's where I'll work someday." Now her mother was lying on a gurney inside it. Lena sat in the waiting room, biology textbook open on her lap. She wasn't reading. She was watching the surgery wing doors. Curtis sat beside her, cane between his knees, one hand on Lena's shoulder. Nyla was curled across two chairs, sleeping with a stuffed butterfly tucked under her chin. 5 hours. 5 hours of silence and bad coffee and Lena pretending to read the same paragraph over and over. Then the surgeon walked through those double doors, looked at the family, and gave a thumbs up. Diane was going to be okay. Lena closed her textbook, put her face in her hands, and cried for the first time in as long as she could remember. Curtis started physical therapy 2 weeks after that. The first session was brutal. His back screamed at every movement. The therapist told him to take it slow. Curtis told the therapist he'd been taking it slow for 2 years. By week 4, he took 3 steps without his cane, then 5, then 10. He stood in the middle of the rehab room, straight-backed, unassisted, his own 2 feet on solid ground, and tears rolled down his face. Not from pain. For the first time in 2 years, not from pain. Then came the move. A 3-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood near Baltimore Prep. Nyla got her own room for the first time in her life. She taped butterfly drawings on every wall. Lena got a desk, her own desk, a real lamp, shelves for her books. She sat at it that first night and just stared at it, ran her fingers across the surface. A desk. Such a simple thing. But for a girl who'd been doing homework on a kitchen table covered in crayon drawings and overdue bills, it felt like a throne. First day at Baltimore Preparatory Academy. Lena walked through the front doors in a new uniform, carrying a new backpack. But inside that backpack, right next to the fresh notebooks and sharpened pencils, was the same worn biology textbook with the cracked spine. And beside it, a brand new stethoscope. A gift from Eleanor. Engraved on the bell in tiny silver letters, "Don't let anybody tell you what you can't be. E.W." First semester report card. Straight A's. Every single class. She took a photo and sent it to Eleanor. Eleanor texted back one word. Obviously. Then came the clinic. A Saturday morning in April, the grand reopening of the East Baltimore Community Health Clinic. Same block where Eleanor had opened her first free clinic in 1972. Same neighborhood where Lena had grown up. Same streets she'd walked 1,000 times with holes in her shoes. Eleanor was there. In a wheelchair now, her health had declined over the winter. But she had insisted. Nobody argued with Eleanor Whitfield, not even her doctors. She and Lena cut the ribbon together. Eleanor held one side of the scissors, Lena held the other. A photographer from the Baltimore Sun captured the moment. It ran on the front page the next morning. Then it got picked up regionally. Then CNN. Whitfield Health Systems reopens historic Baltimore clinic, inspired by a $1.90 bus fare. The clinic opened its doors and didn't stop. Elderly neighbors getting blood pressure checked for the first time in years. A single mother bringing 3 kids in for free vaccinations. A diabetic man getting his insulin adjusted properly for the first time in his life. Diane, healthy now, strong now, glowing in a way her daughters had never seen, volunteered at the front desk twice a week. And Miss Thelma became the clinic's unofficial greeter, standing at the door with the same warmth she'd shown every child who'd ever knocked on her apartment door. "Come on in, baby, you're home!" The Eleanor Foster Medical Scholars Fund expanded. 8 scholarships in the first year. All kids from underserved Baltimore communities. All with the grades and the heart, but not the resources. And the number 9 bus stop on Pratt Street, the one where a 13-year-old girl gave away her last dollar, got a small plaque. Not from the company, from the community. The Lena Foster stop, where kindness changed a life. But the moment that gets me, the one I keep replaying, happened on an ordinary Tuesday 10 months later. Rainy evening, because of course it was. Lena was coming home from Baltimore Prep. She walked to the number 9 bus stop on Pratt Street. Same stop, same bench, same plexiglass shelter where everything started. But Lena was different now. Student transit pass, warm rain jacket, dry shoes. a backpack full of AP biology notes, and a stethoscope she carried everywhere like a promise. She sat on the bench and watched the rain come down. Then she saw them. A boy, maybe 11 or 12, black, fast food uniform under a thin windbreaker, standing in the rain counting coins with the focus of someone who already knew the answer wasn't enough. Next to him on the bench, an old man, patting empty pockets one after another, looking at the approaching bus with the kind of defeat that settles into your face when you've run out of options. Lena watched the boy do the math, watched him look at his coins, look at the old man, watched him make the same calculation she'd made in this exact spot 10 months ago. The boy put $1.90 into the old man's hand, stepped back from the bus. Lena stood up, walked to the boy, pulled out her transit pass and a $20 bill. "Here, take the bus. Get yourself something warm to eat." The boy stared. "I can't take your money." "Yeah, you can. Someone did it for me once, right here on this bench. Changed my whole life. Now I'm doing it for you. That's how it works." He took the 20, got on the next bus, looked back at her through the window. She waved. He waved back. Lena sat down again, rain tapping her jacket, and smiled. That night in Roland Park, Eleanor Whitfield sat in her study. Weaker now, but eyes still sharp, still warm. On her desk, the ribbon-cutting photo, Nyla's butterfly bus drawing, and a handwritten letter from Lena. The last line read, "You didn't just change my family's life, Mrs. Whitfield. You showed me that the smallest thing you do for a stranger might be the biggest thing that ever happens to them. I'm going to be a doctor, and the first patient I help for free will be because of you." Eleanor set the letter down, looked at the black and white photograph of herself at 14, barefoot, holding a textbook. Virginia, 1962. She whispered, "Don't let anybody tell you, Lena." She unpinned the gold brooch from her blazer, clipped it to the ribbon-cutting photo, right next to Lena's face, where it belonged. "So let me ask you something. When was the last time you helped someone? Not for credit, not for a post, just because it felt right. I want to hear it. Drop your story in the comments, because here's what Lena taught me. You don't need money to change a life. You don't need power. You don't need anyone watching. You just need to stop when the world keeps walking. $1.90. That's all it took. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Trust me, the next story hits even harder.
Diana got her surgery. Curtis was without a cane. Lena's on a Fulbright to medical school, all from $1.90 in the rain. But here's what Lena's story really means. First, Lena knew what that $1.90 cost. 3 miles in the dark, in the rain, alone. 30 years old, she did the math and gave it anyway, because she saw blue lips and shallow breathing and recognized symptoms. She'd been studying to understand her mother's dying heart. Her kindness wasn't blind, it was informed. It's not charity, that's character. Second, Eleanor built a $40 billion empire. She told her grandson, "That girl didn't help me because of who I was. She helped me because of who she is." Lena helped a shivering stranger with blue lips. That's the difference between generosity and obligation. Third, Lena's father stopped taking his own medication so his wife could have hers, quietly, without telling anyone. That's where Lena learned it. Lena didn't learn kindness from a book. She learned it watching her parents disappear for each other. So, when the last time you gave something that actually cost you, not spare change, something that hurt to let go of? If a 13-year-old can do it in the rain with her last dollar, what's our excuse? Tell me in the comments. What's your $1.90 moment? Share this, like and subscribe, and remember, you don't need money to change a life. Just stop when everyone else keeps walking.